time with all of you and hopefully give you some real concrete and imaginative ways to basically make the faith sparkle. Part of my background is also that I work professionally for Catholic Marketing Network, so I'm heavily involved with the process of marketing and faith formation. If we look deeply at it, is really, when we do it effectively, is to market effectively the faith to the next generation. And when we think about it in those terms, we go back to, and I'm so sad, I think it was Pope Benedict, but it might have been Pope John Paul II, that would advocate for us to propose the faith as opposed to impose the faith. And I think everything Nancy and Denise have been talking about is giving us tools to do that, to propose the faith, to make it something we get to do as opposed to something we have to do, something that is a delight for the family and the child, that it strengthens us as opposed to, oh yeah, I have to go to mass. We want to reboot that entire thinking. So let me share my screen with you, and I will get started. This is going to be an action-packed 30 minutes, so buckle up because you are getting ready to become a superhero, all right? And if not a superhero yourself, then you can be like me because I'm a sidekick, and we can all be sidekicks to help the children be the superheroes, be the virtue heroes. So let me share my screen and we will get going. Okay, share and play. Bam, here we are. All right, so we are here to empower heroic virtue. And the way I call it is, it's a whole new way to hero. This is my background. I have a 20-year pedigree of doing every kind of catechetical teaching that you can imagine. I have run VBSs. I have created VBS curriculum. I've taught second grade, 7th grade, you name it, all of it. I founded a nonprofit, and now really where I'm finding the greatest need is to creatively bring the faith alive through these virtue heroes. So the whole point of our faith is to get to heaven so that we can be saints. Heroic virtue is what makes a saint, all right? When they are trying to decide who is canonized, it's not because there were miracles. The miracles are signs, sort of winks from heaven saying, hey, this person really is holy. Heroic virtue in their life is what makes a saint a saint. Well, if you look at this image, and Nancy, you talk so much about the images, and it's so powerful. This image for a child, these are all saints. Look at Mary Magdalene hugging on that cross. But for a kid, they look at the image and they think they're all statues. It might as well be in the Chronicles of Narnia, where the White Witch has turned everybody to stone. All right, we want our children to desire to be saints, to desire heroic virtue, to desire holiness. Because if you ever go into a classroom and you say, who wants to be a saint? And will anyone raise their hand? No, they're like, yeah, we have to do a report on them. So how do we get our children to desire holiness? So here's what I'm going to go through with you today. I'm going to tell you how to come alongside, how to power up imagination, how showing, not telling, is so much more important, how role models and relationships are the key, which actually feeds perfectly into everything that Nancy and Denise have been talking about, and how superheroes and sidekicks can actually come alongside and be your secret weapon. All right. What happened to me when I got trained in Catechesis of Good Shepherd, I advocate for any parent, any teacher to get trained in it if you ever can. Because what it is it rebooted my thinking of how education works and how being a parent works. Because it taught me how to come alongside of the child instead of standing in front and pointing a finger saying, you need to know this. Instead, we learn how to come alongside, and the true teacher is the Holy Spirit. And if you look at these images, the parent is pointing the child to something. They're pointing the child to a read aloud. The father is pointing the child to something extraordinary. That is the tone, the mode, the position that we want to take as educators and parents. So here's one of my little mottos. I say virtue grows on the inside before it shows on the outside. We have to get our head into all these good things. And it's not so much necessarily just what we know and learn. That's a part of it. But we have to start thinking and imagining what the goodness looks and feels like so that then we can act on it. But how do we get inside a kid's head? It's the hardest thing in the world. Well, I advocate for the fact that imagination is actually sacred space. It is truly where our creative soul can meet with God in an extraordinary way that isn't possible really anyplace else in our life. I call it a spiritual dojo, all right? It's our sacred training space. And we are designed by God to seek out a sensei. We look for mentors to help give us meaning in our imagination. That's why we are so image driven, like Nancy talks about. But the problem is our culture tells children that it's just a mental playground. And unfortunately, imagination is so much more than that. But it's a place where we are very easily influenced, and we are led by what we let in. So that's why, when you have 1 hour a week to do catechesis, but they spend hundreds of hours every week on, absolutely either morally misguided or spiritually bankrupt entertainment, that it becomes really hard because the children's hearts are being led by all these other things. So here's something I want to give you as, we are going to step into our spiritual dojo, and we are going to actually do a little exercise right now. I believe in presenting where we do active things. So something that I have done with children for years in my VBS, I create a fresh component to our parish's VBS for the last 5 years. And one thing I've learned is this 3-step gesture. In Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, you really learn how the power of gestures are so incredibly important. So here's our 3 virtue heroes superpower gestures. And you guys can do this with any child. Any parent can do this with any child. And if you do it with your heart in it, like you're part of it, not like you're telling them or teaching something, it sticks in their mind, and they will be thinking about it for hours and days on it. So here's how it works. Small v virtue is our own efforts. The praying hands are God's grace coming in, and the big V virtue is how virtue becomes our superpower. So first one, small v virtue. Everybody, give me a peace sign right now. All right, there's your small v virtue. So you tell these children that that's where we all begin, with small v virtue. And it symbolizes our own efforts, how we try really hard to be virtuous and to do good things. It is the starting point of building real capital V big time virtue. But often when you're in character education programs, they leave it here. They don't get any farther because they leave out the power source. So we bring in gesture number 2. So you start with the small v, then you do praying hands. Okay? Praying hands, we are showing that we need grace to be our power source. All right? And grace gives us G-force. All right? The G-force opens up those praying hands to make the big V, the capital V. G-force propels us, all right? Grace propels us forward so that we can do what our own efforts are most often likely incapable of doing. I can try and try and try and try to be patient, and I don't often get very much success with it. But with prayer and grace and trusting in the strength of God, I can little by little become, with my effort, a patient person. So this propels us forward. And then gesture number 3. Woo! This is our big stretch, everybody. Arms over the head. This is the V. This is the big V virtue. We are talking about victory. All right? And the big V virtue is where virtue has now become part of us. These little intentional steps now become part of who we are. And the kids understand the difference. They understand the small V virtue is where we're working hard and we fail a lot. And then we bring God's grace into the mix to strengthen us. And then we can become that kind person, that patient person. All of those good qualities can become part of us. And then we say, yay, God, to make it official. All right, so that's becoming a super-powered, virtue-powered hero. All right, now, why is all of this so important for us to think about? Because everything we do that's active with a child and a family, whether it's looking at the images of faith where you're together as a family or you're having an experience together, those are the most powerful things, because our psyche is now being trained and our children are being conditioned to expect life to be a series of entertainment and experiences. And unfortunately, those are all very passive kinds of things. You go to something, you do something, and everything on your phone is passive, 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 passive. And so we want to try and help our children learn how to listen to that voice in their heart, that voice inside their head that calls them to be actively deciding and discerning and engaged, as opposed to the voice outside their head, which tells them through entertainment and advertising and marketing all the time, just go with the flow. Okay? This is why it's so important that we show, not tell. All right. How do we do that showing, not telling? Well, I have been encountering different people, different professionals, whether it's mental health professionals or people who have worked for decades in the character formation space. And every one of them say that if you boil all of character education down into one thing, the essence of it is role models. It really is. That's why what everybody's doing with Vibrant Faith in this whole intergenerational connecting with faith formation is so important, because you want the role models within family. That's why I think God is giving us an opportunity here to really pivot to more family engaged formation. I don't think this is a mistake. I think this is God seeing our culture needs for such a time as this. And so you want to be a role model and you want to lead the children to role models. And if we are seeing these people who are motivated by grace, okay, we can have all kinds of role models. We are a culture of celebrity, but unfortunately, too much of the role models out there are not full of grace. They are tainted by self-interest. And that is a problem, because you teach kids to do the right thing because it makes them feel better or it makes them feel good in some way. Well, that's not real virtue. And that's not a faith you're going to die for. Okay, you're not going to go forward in faith when it's uncomfortable and when it requires some suffering. So we don't want just to hold up role models that are celebrities and things like that. We want to hold up the role models, and that's why I point to the saints a lot, who are willing to suffer in order to be and do good and love Jesus. Okay? So here's an example that any one of you can do, because you can do it virtually. This is something that I've been doing for years in my VBS curriculum that I always add on things to. I bring saints alive. I bring normal people from the child's own experience. So these are parents from the parish, okay? And they have to have some sort of little, a bit of a dramatic flair, and they become a saint. So I'm usually Remibriel, the angel that brings saints to visit down from heaven. You know, I'll wear a halo or whatever. And I bring these saints down to visit the children from heaven. We have had John Bosco and his mom. That's the right-left picture. We had Kizito from Africa, and we had Begita. Listen to Begita. This is a woman in my parish who is from Africa.
I worked so hard to bring Christianity to Africa. I want everybody in Africa to know God, to understand God, to feel the God that I found in my heart. And I want you guys here to know that God loves you and God has a purpose for your life. God destined each and every one of you to be something great. All you have to do is to have the courage, okay? Through your faith, have the courage. Believe in God, because God loves you.
Okay, this video was of someone the kids knew. So this is a role model of a family, person from their world, from their life, who is acting out, bringing alive, okay? This is entertainment and experience, all wrapped up in the faith. She was talking about having courage. This particular saint that we were talking about was all about courage. So we were integrating virtue and faith formation and saints examples all into one. And you could easily do this on a video that then you send out to families in your parish or your community. All right, here's another really, really important little quote. And it says, "Those who tell the stories rule the world." And I would say, Plato said this, he knew it. This is human nature from the start. And I would say those who tell the stories rule the child's world. And so we have got to connect these children with storytellers that tell stories that imbue faith and virtue. All right, I am on a mission to create storytellers to lead children to Christ and holy role models. So it began when I published my first storybook called Easter Bunny's Amazing Day. The little bunny is this storyteller, and he talks about how his experience with Jesus on Easter transformed him. Then I created a little lamb who gets lost and finds his way to the Bethlehem stable. And now the newest characters are from what I call my tiny virtue heroes, and they're just emerging now. This is hot off the press, everybody. And there's Moshe. And if you encounter him in the little storybook that goes with it, his superhero cape is Mary's mantle. There is so much deep symbolism in this that you're just gonna, it's so fun. So this is the entire menagerie of tiny virtue heroes, icons of everyday virtue, and they're the sidekick storytellers that lead children to role models who are full of heroic virtue. All right, here's how it works. Every single time there is one of the little characters, they have two heroes. One is a biblical virtue hero, like for Moshe, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is his biblical virtue hero. But they also have what we call a mission virtue hero. This is Blessed Justo Takeyama, who was a samurai warrior who showed so much heroic humility and became this amazing catechist for Christ. So we lead them to these role models. Then the next one is that I'm going to show as an example is Amel the camel. He is the storyteller of the three wise men, and he introduces the children to Balthazar, this beautiful Negro king, and Francis of Assisi. So that's how these are structured. The storybook that is launching right now, that's launching this whole process, is called A Mouse and a Miracle, and it's available pre-order at perpetuallightpublishing.com. But this is where we're going to show, not tell, this humility of Mary and this little mouse. Okay, I'm going to let you see a little video just for fun. I made like an iMovie, you know, the movie trailers. Look at how cute that mouse is. And we're making Mary someone that children can relate to, that she's a young teen girl who had an extraordinary moment where God asked her to be the mother of the Messiah. And she humbly says, yes. All right. Yay! So this is this whole way we're going to reimagine or repicture Mary in a way that basically is, you know, I love the artist who created her with the little broom. Like she's a Cinderella, that she's the ultimate Cinderella story, that God ends up asking her to become the queen of heaven and earth. And yet she begins this part of her life as just a sweet teen girl. And her little storyteller is Mo, and he's this mouse that every child will identify with. And that's what's so cool about this, is we make it so that the child can relate and not think that all these saints and holy people are someone that they can't relate to. On the website, virtueheroes.com, I have a list of all the characters, all the virtues. And what's beautiful is these are pegs of little simple bites of information that then all of the rest of your formation programs build on. But these characters get into a child's head. I mean, they relate to them, and it really can help energize all these other things that you guys are trying to do. Now, something that is practical, and this is one of the free printable downloads that I'm making available for everybody who's part of this event, is this Virtue Heroes Power Bingo. And it invites children to think and pray, do and say, hooray, virtue. The think part is all about what they read, watch, listen, and experience in terms of stories, videos, and songs, trying to be intentional about what they put inside their head. Praying, obviously, if they're praying for themselves or others, doing different virtue in different ways, and in what they say. Nowadays, everybody thinks talk is so cheap, and everybody thinks they can say anything they want. We want virtue in what we say. And my favorite part of this is the hooray part, because that's where a child gets a point. They get to color in the square when they tattle on someone else for being virtuous. We are rebooting the entire impulse of a child to tattle. So tattle on someone for being good, not because they're being unfair, or I don't like that. So we want to give them a whole new way to tattle. All right, the other one is a word search related to humility. So this is just, I believe strongly that words become flesh. Jesus himself was the Word made flesh. We must build virtue vocabulary in our children. And humility is the queen of all the virtues, so that's where all this begins. And so this is just a simple download where they can do the word search and to be thinking about all these other little words that go along with humility. Okay, this one I could go into for a very long time, and I'm not going to. I believe Masango and I are having a conversation about having a separate workshop just about Virtue Heroes for people to be able to go into more depth. But this is something that's available either as a 16 by 20 inch poster or an 11 by 17 dry erase magnet. But you can use it as a board game, an aid to devotional prayer. There's 10 little circles in each section, and it corresponds exactly to a rosary. And the prayer power-ups, which are the big beads, They are where you pray for someone in a mission region of the world. All these colors go with the World Mission Rosary. All right. So we're inviting the children to basically pray for the whole world, whether you pray a rosary or not. You know, it doesn't need to be a rosary. It's lined up to be one. But then also it's a motivation behavior reward tool where they can, as they do different good things, and this can be in the home or in the classroom. I have a preschool teacher that this is going to be her behavior system in her classroom this fall. And so the whole class can help get farther along the path, and then together they celebrate and plan some virtuous activity for someone else when they achieve it. This is what the poster looks like. And so I say this is for playtime, playtime, and everyday time. And this is available at Virtue Heroes store on Zazzle. All right. So that's where any of my little stuff that I'm showing you, if it isn't on the website directly, it's on the Zazzle store. And now, this is so simple. This is another activity that could be done at home. I have made Virtue Heroes pillowcases, all right? And it says on it, I am a virtue hero. The child can say that affirmation every night before going to sleep. It is powerful, but they also can wear it as a superhero cape during the day. Look at these little children. This is so cute. I'm a virtue hero. This is where we get into a child's head. And it's as simple as a pillowcase. And you do not need to buy my pillowcase. You can actually just put a big V with a circle around it and paint it at home. Make it a craft project, all right? But just put the words on there. I am a virtue hero. And then look at, I am a virtue hero. Last thing before she goes off to sleep. If our children's imaginations were engaged this way with these kinds of heroic thinking, think of what that would inspire them to do. All right. If you have a smartphone with you, go to virtueheroes.com on the Tiny Virtue Heroes page and scroll through, because like Nancy with the visual faith, there are images for all of these characters. And so you could literally open up the page and stick it into a child's hand, and they can scroll through and go see all these virtue heroes. Now, someday we're going to have the equivalent of Pokemon cards for these, but we are not there yet. This is still in the baby stage, and I'm happy to make all this info and all this inspiration available for free because it's so important. But I truly believe that the power of Pixar can be applied to our faith. So my thought that I leave you with is truly, we can tell our children virtue is real superpower. It is the supernatural power of God alive in us. And if we help our children to think of virtue as their superpower, then they will want to have heroic virtue, holiness, and heaven. So thank you. You can connect with me at tiny@virtueheroes.com. I am happy to be everybody's sidekick. And I'm on YouTube. I don't have a lot of videos on YouTube yet. They will come. Twitter, I do. And actually, I'm so sorry. Twitter is @PowerParable. That's a mistake. Instagram is @VirtueHeroes. So most all of my handles are @VirtueHeroes, but I had the Power of Parable one a while back, and so I've left it for the Twitter part. But anyway, please feel free to connect with me in any way, but I'm here for you guys, and we're going to make the faith fun and smile and a delight for families. So
Awesome.
if anybody wants questions or anything, I think I'm probably, yeah, whoa, look at that. I got through in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks, Cathy, so much. Yeah, there haven't been a ton of questions in the chat box. It's mostly all been responses and enthusiasm and thank you. So just please know that people were right there with you as you were talking. There was some question about, is it the power of parable or just power parable?
Power of parable. Now I got to
Good.
figure out how to unshare my screen. Stop sharing. There we go. Now I can see you guys. All right.
And then, good. And then another question was, are the books available?
Yes, the book, the first storybook, we're just launching this series. This first storybook is available for pre-order at perpetuallightpublishing.com. So go there, let them know. It should be out. COVID has just done a number on even the publishing process. And so everything's running behind. We were hoping that it would be all up and people could get them. But the other beautiful thing is Misango is making the storybook available within Catholic Brain as like a little, what do you call it, premium content add-on. So I think it's for $5.99. People will be able to get access to the ebook within Catholic Brain, and then they can read the storybook anytime. So that's another way to access it too. And as more storybooks come out, then we'll keep you posted.
Here's a great idea for you, Cathy. Meg says, is it possible for you to do read-alouds of the books and videotape them, since so many of us will be doing distance learning? So that might be
Absolutely.
a fun thing for you to think
and
of
that
doing.
will be something that will come in pretty short order, because I am not somebody coming from a standpoint. Lots of publishers out there, they hold all their content very close to the vest. They're like, oh no, we don't want to, give it all away for free. I'm like, no, I'm giving it all away for free, because I believe that the storybook, ultimately you're going to want to have one to hold in your hand. But I want you to get all the benefit and all the blessing of that story in every which way we can possibly access it. So yes, absolutely.
Great, good. Thank you, Cathy. Thank you for that enthusiastic time. And we're all thinking of virtues in a new light, and thinking how virtues can be something that we can all be working for.